More men are turning to be effeminate, and this is taking a toll on the Kenyan women. Sociologists are warning that this trend is going to have a deep impact on society because studies in other parts of the world have shown that a significant number of children brought up in single-parent families, they have lower life prospects, be it intellectual, be it social, be it economic, and all those. In his own life, Boone, a native of Brooklyn, New York, he says that his father was present but not there. Boone is a star high school basketball player, and he says that his father came to only one of his games. So when we talk about absent fathers, we are talking about fathers not being physically absent in terms of they have died or there's separation or divorce. But again, we are talking about another more painful category of fathers who are emotionally disconnected. They are present, but they are not connected to their children. And this causes more pain in the life of anybody when a father is physically present, but emotionally absent. In fact, the children whose fathers are not physically absent, they are emotionally more stable than the ones who have fathers present and disconnected from their lives. And this is what Boone says in A Pain in My Heart. He says, I don't remember my father ever hugging me. Anybody can remember their father ever hugging them? Mostly the girl child, a few of the boy child. The father seated here. Do you think it's important to hug your children? How many fathers have hugged their children? Wonderful. And this is what he says. The VC is doing very well, and I'm privileged to have him sit in my presentation today. We never had him saying he was proud of us. As your father ever said he's proud of you? And this is what he says. The emotional pain of what I deserve and I didn't get, I have to carry it for the rest of my life. There's another author and spoken word artist called Daniel Beatty. He also carried the pain of his father's absence due to incarceration, due to being taken to jail. And this is what he says in his poem. The poem is entitled Knock Knock. And he says, 25 years later, I write these words for the little boy in me who still awaits his papa's knock. And he goes further to say, Papa, come home, because there are things that I don't know. And I thought maybe you could teach me how to shave, how to dribble a ball, how to talk to a lady, how to walk like a man. Do you know that boys learn how to walk like men from men? A woman can transform an egg into an embryo into a baby in her body, but a woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man. It takes a man to teach a boy how to walk like a man, how to talk like a man, and how to talk to a lady. And he says, 25 years later, a little boy cries. And so I write these words and I try to heal and try to father myself. And I dream up of a father. He was about 30 years old and he was still a boy trapped in an adult's body. Closer home now, our very own President Barack Obama. Have you read his books? I have read his books and the book of the wife. And President Obama has talked about a hole in his heart. It was left by the absence of his father. And in February 2014, he announced an initiative called My Brother's Keeper. This initiative works to expand opportunities for boys and young men of color in underserved communities with a focus on education, reading, job training, and mentoring. When you read Obama's book, Dreams from My Father, he says that before he became anything, when he was still smoking and leading a useless life at that point, he came all the way to Kogelo to touch the soil. And when he touched the soil, there's nothing magical about going to Kogelo or touching the soil. But it's because he needed to connect with his absent father. And that is when he went back and he connected with his life, and the rest is history. But one thing is that he never kept quiet about it. He actually formed an initiative. And this is what Obama announced when he was launching this initiative. I believe the continuing struggles of so many boys and young men, the fact that too many of them are falling by the wayside, dropping out, unemployed, involved in negative behavior, going to jail, being profiled. This, to me, is a moral issue for our country. It was and it is a moral issue for America, and I want to believe it is a moral issue in our country. Closer, closer, closer home. Do you know who is there? Can you tell who is there? Who can you see? You can see one former TV anchor. You can see him, and you can see his son. Now, this is what the son says. The young man is a filmmaker, photographer, musician, and lecturer based in South Africa. Successful by all standards. And this is what he reveals. He says, my relationship with my father is cordial. And he says, my mother was technically a single mother. I had no relationship with my father. He was the man we watched on TV. However, we met later in life when he fell sick and I needed to help with the bill. And he says that we have a cordial relationship, but we don't talk. How many people have a cordial relationship with their fathers, but they don't talk? He says he wishes him well, and he does the same. He realized that parents are also human. And he says that our parents made the best decisions with what they had, so he had to make a decision to let go. And he asked himself, how can I do better? And this presentation is not meant to condemn our parents. I'm a parent too, and I've failed many times. And my parents also, my mother also failed many times. But I know she's human, and she did the best under the circumstances. However, I can do better. And so this young man was asked, have you forgiven your father? And he says, forgiveness is a lifelong journey. You don't just wake up one morning and everything is okay. And we are going to see this at the end of it, how we can apply it in our own lives. But really, what is fatherhood? Whoever trains anybody to be a father. At the very beginning of creation of our world, God proclaimed that it's not good for man to be alone. And through Adam, he instituted the family as the center of the human community. Throughout the historical transitions of a variety of cultures, the family has existed as a natural society that provided the soul for each nation. The family is to be nourished and protected through fatherhood. In my culture, in the Kisi culture, my second name is Kwamboka. Misati is my father. There is no way, at least at that time when my generation and older, there is no way I can have a child and call him, let's say my son is called Ryan. My son can never be called Ryan Kwamboka. It can never happen. Even if I got him and I was not married. What will happen if my father is younger and still there? My son will be called Ryan Misati. Misati is my father. If my father is old and maybe dead, like now my father is dead, he will be called Ryan Gesanda. Gesanda is my firstborn brother. And our forefathers knew best. They knew that a child needed the mentorship, the guidance, and the security of the father. So my brother would be expected to attend his school functions, to attend his activities, to mentor him, and to stand up for my son. And my son would be expected to identify himself with my brother. And that is how it was appreciated and it was practiced in traditional transitions. And I know many communities probably had a way, and that is where we find issues like widow inheritance. And I'm not encouraging that because it's a harmful practice and even not biblical. But this is how this society took care of the widows. The widows' emotional needs were taken care of, and the children were fathered and they were mentored. But when we come to Christianity, very, very gray area. You will find somebody is widowed and they're very young. The Bible is very clear on remarriage, but we are not really comfortable talking about it. And when the widow wants to remarry, a question comes like, so where is she taking our children? So she's bringing another man to our son's house. You know, then tradition comes into play and there's a lot of confusion. And these children are left with nobody to mentor them. But what exactly is fatherhood? There is more to true paternity than breeding an offspring. And that is why I said if I was to get a child and I'm not married, my brother may not be the biological father of this child, but he was expected to be a father to this child. So there's much more. And this is what one author says, Clayton Babu says, the notion of responsibility is at the crux of true fatherhood. The conscious sense of responsibility for the physical and spiritual well-being of others is the mark of a true father. A father is not somebody who goes planting or sowing their wild oats and disappearing. A father is somebody who is there, who is responsible, who is concerned with the security and well-being of the offspring. We talked about the fall of King Solomon yesterday, that he turned from being pure and manly, he became effeminate. Let's look at what science has said. What has science, and interestingly, as it always happens, science has actually confirmed that God knows best. And this is what science says. 63% of youth suicides, they are from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 32 times the average. 85% of all children who show behavior disorders are from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists with anger problems, they are from fatherless homes. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. Let's look at drug and alcohol abuse and the father factor. Children living in a two-parent household with a poor relationship with their father, they are 68% more likely to smoke, to drink, and to use drugs compared to all teens in a two-parent households. So once again, you can see the effect of a disconnected father. Teens in a single mother household, they are 30% higher risk to drug abuse and alcohol than those in two-parent households. What about the father factor and incarceration or going to jail? 70% of youths in state-operated institutions, they come from fatherless homes. 85% of all youths in prison, they come from fatherless homes. This is what Dr. James Dobson says. Dr. James Dobson is a clinical psychologist and a family therapist. He has written many books, among them Bringing Up Boys, Dare to Discipline, The Strong-Willed Child, and he runs a program, a TV program called Focus on the Family. This is what he says. Whereas girls too need their fathers, boys are especially in need of time with dad. When you compare the boy child with the girl child, boys are 6 times more likely to have learning disabilities. They are 3 times more likely to be drug addicts, 4 times more likely to be diagnosed as being emotionally disturbed. Boys are at a greater risk of schizophrenia, that's a severe mental illness, autism, sexual addiction, alcoholism, bedwetting, and all forms of antisocial and criminal behavior. They are 12 times more likely to murder. And their rate of death in car accidents is about 50%. So in this way, the boys need the security and the emotional stability that is brought about by a father being present. About 77% of delinquency-related court cases, they involve males. Dr. William Pollock, who is a Harvard psychologist and is an author of the book Real Boys, he concludes that divorce is difficult for children of both sexes, but it's devastating for males. He says the basic problem is lack of discipline and supervision in a father's absence, an availability to teach the boy what it means to be a man. And in this case, the boy will go to what he feels as the role model, music stars, to mentor him. And because boys spend 80% of their time with women, they don't know how to act as men. So they grow up to be pink boys who talk like women, walk like women, and behave like women. And when this happens, the relationship between the sexes is affected. Men become helpless. They become more like big kids. and they need direction. That is when they need to be directed by the woman. And we said yesterday that effeminate men, when you ask them, honey, what do we do? They say, imagine even me, I don't know. Let me ask a question this morning. I don't know whether there's a parent who has a 5-year-old. Any parent here with a 5-year-old son? Does anybody have a 5-year-old son? Okay, somebody has a 5-year-old son. I want us to just understand, typically, what percentage of time do you think your son spends with a male, a man? What percentage of his day does he spend with a man? A man, in the presence of a man. Out of a day of 24 hours or 12 hours, what percentage of that time does your son spend with a man? It can be you, it can be an uncle or whoever. What percentage of the time? Like 20%. And this is one of the luckiest. The lucky boys spend 10 to 20% of the time with a man. But most of them spend nearly zero time. Let me demonstrate this. Who takes care of this son most of the time? The boy. Who takes care of him when you're at work? The house girl. Who is a woman, isn't it? When he comes to school, he has a kindergarten teacher. The teacher is say it aloud, the teacher is a woman. When he comes to church, suppose he's an Adventist, he comes to church, or maybe even he goes to Sunday, but he comes to church and he goes to the class called kindergarten. The kindergarten teacher is when in the evening, most of the time, to be honest, who checks the homework? A woman who is there. So this boy, he's growing, he gets to 7 years, and experts agree that 90% of the character is formed by the time a child is 90 years. Is it fair to expect this 7-year-old boy to behave like a man? How? We can pray about it, but prayer cannot take the place of duty. Can this boy walk like a man? Can he wear black and gray? He will want to wear pink like me. Because he's used to, pink is what he can see. He will want to wear pink. He will want to wear super skinny jeans because that is what mommy and sisters are wearing. He will talk like a woman. In one of the schools where I serve, one parent broke down when she was sharing. She was saying that the son is telling her, Mommy, I wish I was a girl, and he's applying lip balm, and he's talking like a girl, and he's smiling like a girl. And the mother told me something very disturbing, that I beat that child senseless. It's until, the boy was about 7, 8, it's until we started discussing and we asked, seriously, how do you expect this boy to behave like a man? How does he know how men behave? So we need to be fair. We now can begin to understand how the relationships are getting confused. Pollock believes that fathers are crucial in helping boys to manage their emotions. Without guidance and direction of a father, can you hear me? You can hear me right at the back. Thank you. You can hear me. Without the guidance and direction of a father, a boy's frustration often leads to varieties of violence and other antisocial behavior. You read in the media from one boy who stabbed a man who was sleeping with the mother. You read that? The problem is much more than just the man sleeping with the father. This boy is frustrated because he's lacking supervision by a father. So he's violent. And I commented online and I was saying, if this boy is not cancelled, this is just the beginning of the murders he's going to commit. Because the boy is frustrated. And this is a cry for help. There are two critical periods that a boy child is particularly vulnerable. The first period is between the ages of 3 to 5. And this is a time when boys are pulling away from their mommy and their sisters in an effort to formulate masculine identity. And this period is called differentiation and disconnection. They are differentiating into their fathers and they are disconnecting from their mothers. And the boy will start wearing daddy's shoes. He will start wearing daddy's clothes. And he will start saying he wants to become a policeman or he wants to become a soldier. Is that familiar? Because for them, the definition of masculinity is being a soldier or being a policeman. And it's at a time that the boy needs to be encouraged. Some mothers will tell their sons, maybe you just come home, like what my son used to do. I just appear home, I've knocked, I've entered. Then he says, Daddy, ako wapi? Then I used to ask, okay, you're not happy seeing me. But the boy needs to be encouraged because he's trying to identify himself with the father. Another stage is when the boy is a teenager. This is during puberty. And during those years, the boys crave attention and the involvement of their dad, and they try to emulate his mannerisms. And that is what was happening to the boy in Baringo, because he's a teenage and he wants to identify with the father. And then just to find another man sleeping with the mother, he ended up killing this man. Don't think it's only boys who need their fathers. Girls also need fathering. Fathers teach girls by the way they speak and they act towards them, and through their treatment of other females, particularly the way they treat their wives. That is why if a woman is in an abusive marriage, chances are very high, 75%, the daughter will be abused. Because she will look for a man who is just like her father. She will be abused, and the boys will end up being abusers. So it becomes a generational cycle. When you find a girl from a home where the parents are divorced or separated, they often show aggression with the opposite sex. Their behavior is seductive and often promiscuous. So sometimes when you see a girl wearing a handkerchief for a skirt, and she's wearing a spaghetti top, she's crying for help. She needs help and not condemnation. There are no girls like that here. They are not here. They need help. And so when we stand at the pulpit and we start preaching about dress and condemning with fire and brimstone, it serves to push them away. They need help because they have tension, because they don't know how to relate with the opposite sex. So they end up becoming seductive and promiscuous. Their behavior is actually, as we said, from tension. Girls without effective male role models during early to mid-teens, they become vulnerable to the attention of older men, sponsors, and they seek fathering as well as love. So the girl is on an ever elusive journey of looking for their father. So they see this man and they're looking for a father, and the hole is growing bigger and bigger. So they keep looking. Do you see where the sponsor phenomena is coming from? So the girls become very vulnerable. I want you to be very conscious and very self-aware, because this has been my journey too. I don't know whether I shared some time back or yesterday that my father died when I was maybe 3 years. I was very young. And so I didn't grow up with a father, and I can relate with all this. I can relate with the hole in my heart. But I thank God because he's a father to the fatherless and a defender of the widows. Now, daughters of single mothers without a father involved, they are 53% more likely to marry as teenagers. And the cycle continues. They are 71% more likely to have children as teenagers. They are 92% more likely to get divorced themselves. Disconnected fathers. I'm going to move faster because of time. Disconnected fathers. Studies show that 50% of adult men, they say that their fathers were emotionally absent. If we took a poll here, we might find actually that more than 50%, you will tell me that your fathers were not absent. Many men don't want to repeat this cycle, but they are powerless. They go back to what they were used to, but the cycle can actually be broken. Steps can be taken to preserve family time. Work schedules can be tailored so that the father has flexibility in planning to be home over the weekends and even during holidays. This is what the book Adventist Home says. The father of boys should come into close contact with his sons, giving them the benefit of his larger experience and talking with them in such simplicity and tenderness that he binds them to his heart. He should let them see that he has their best interest, their happiness in view all the time. He should not leave his restless boys wholly to the care of the mother. This is too heavy a burden for any mother. We can do something as a church or even as a people. We can do something because we have this crisis. And what we can do is, those who are in two-parent families, we can adopt, we can mentor a single parent. We can also form a support system. However, I just want to mention specifically in a situation where we are right now, there could be some of us who have identified that they have a hole in their heart. Maybe because of an absent father or because of a disconnected father. And how can you know that you have a hole in your heart? That is the question that I want to ask us to consider today. How can you know whether you have this hole in your heart? And there are many ways in which you can know if you have the hole in your heart. And I'm just going to share with us a few of them, how you can know that you have a hole in your heart and what you can do about it. Sorry about that. You may be a young man or you may be a young lady, and from what we have shared this morning, you have been able to see that probably you have this hole and you have tried to fill it in many ways. And there's something that we can do so that all of us can be able to live a wholesome life. And as I said, this is not meant to condemn any of our parents, because the parents did their best, and experts actually agree that 80% of our character is formed at home. So many times as parents, we may blame the school, we may blame the church, we may blame the peers or the neighborhood. Unfortunately, 80% of the character has been learned because people relate according to what they observe at home. And so this is what I'm going to share with us so that we interrogate ourselves. Females. In females, these are some of the symptoms of a hole in your heart. You are jealous, you are clingy, and you're insecure. If you feel jealous, you feel clingy, or you feel insecure, you may be having a hole in your heart. If you stick with the partner, even though he's wrong for you, the partner is wrong for you, and everybody sees he's wrong for you, but you stick with them. You need constant attention or constant validation. You need somebody to keep telling you, I love you, you're good, you're beautiful all the time. It's good to be appreciated, but if you thrive on this appreciation, you may be having a hole in your heart. You fear getting close. You don't trust men. You see men and you cringe. If you generalize men, you say men are beasts, men are junks, men are evil, all men are the same. You may be having a hole in your heart. If you are overly defensive, if defensiveness is a way of protecting yourself from being hurt because you're wounded, the best way is for you to heal the wound by God's grace. If you tend to prefer much older men, you think that is maturity. You know, you say, me, I cannot connect with these schoolboys. Me, I'm the class of working class, you know. You may be having a daddy hole. Now, finally, for males, if you are aloof, you are very distant and very disconnected. You don't easily emotionally connect with somebody. If you're not concerned with other people's business is their business. It's me, I, and myself. You may be having a hole in your heart. If you're disrespectful, you don't respect your teachers, you don't respect anybody. If you are commitment phobic, you cannot take a relationship to another level. Tuko tu. Hey, mi bado sija decide. Tuko tu. You are getting to 40 years, 50 years. You desire marriage 35 years, but, arm's length. If you are irresponsible, you are not responsible to the person I said your hand touches, your heart, your mouth, and your sexual organs. You plant the seed and take off. You may be having a daddy hole. You are not affectionate. You find it hard to show affection to your loved ones, to your spouse, to your children. You find it very hard to show. to show love and emotional connection. Is it possible, this is my last slide, is it possible to get victory over a daddy hole? Be honest about it. Just say, I am wounded, I have this hole, and I need the Lord to fill that hole. Let go of self-blame. Don't blame yourself. Don't blame your father. Forgive him and say, he did the best under the circumstances, but I can do better. Examine your relationship and attempt to reconnect. Try and reach out to your father. If you are here and you never call your father, you never have a conversation with him, please reconnect. But manage your expectations. The relationship may not be perfect. When you go back, don't expect you'll go back and you suddenly become very close. You may not be very close, but then you will have a cordial relationship. Explore your intentions and your desires. Why do you want to reconnect with your father? Is it because you want land? Or is it because you honestly want to connect with him? Create healthy boundaries. Don't allow the person or your dad to keep hurting you again. Don't allow him, maybe if he's saying negative things because of the struggles he's having, don't allow that to keep happening. Express your thoughts, your feelings, and your wishes clearly and calmly. You may not be able to talk to him maybe face to face or on phone, but you can take a letter and you write down. And you say, this is what I have felt all these years. My daddy never taught me to walk like a man, to talk like a man, to talk to a lady, to shave. And so my mother was my role model. And so I realized because of that I have become effeminate. But Lord, I want to let go. I want to forgive and let go. You may give him the letter or not. Yeah. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, we may not have time to connect, but later on, today and even tomorrow, we will have some time. If you have any concerns, you can write down. We will address, and maybe I will have time to share my testimony. Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your mercies that are new every morning. I thank you for the message that you have taught us today. And Lord, even as we carry on, I pray that you continue abiding with us. Bless all of us in Jesus' name.